what's going on.
Okay, well, let's break down why it's going on. What's in this for the UK? What is London looking to gain from this support for France?
Well, it's very interesting, isn't it? Because if we think back to 2011, it was David Cameron and William Hague, people like this, who were the loudest and most aggressive cheerleaders for the deposing of Colonel Gaddafi, who was the biggest bulwark against al-Qaeda in northern Africa. And now the very same people, Cameron and Hague, are the ones saying we've got to get involved in the Mali operation to put down al-Qaeda groups there. And so there's a real inconsistency here, a real hypocrisy. You know, why, if fighting al-Qaeda in Africa is that the biggest task, why did we play such an active role in toppling the one leader in northern Africa who actually was a bulwark against al-Qaeda? And sort of what's in it for Britain? I think that what's happening, Anissa, is that this al-Qaeda threat is being used as a smokescreen for the recolonization of northern Africa by NATO forces, by France, Britain and the US.
Do you think that's why we're seeing the ignoring of the rise of al-Qaeda per se in Syria?
Absolutely, because of course it's one of the biggest myths in international relations is that the Western powers are implacably opposed to al-Qaeda over the last 20, 30 years. They're not. What they will use the al-Qaeda threat in some circumstances to intervene and invade certain countries like Afghanistan, but elsewhere they will actually back al-Qaeda militants to actually topple secular regimes like the one in Syria and in Libya. And so it's a Frankenstein's monster, and of course it all dates back to Afghanistan in the 1980s. And al-Qaeda and radical Islamic groups were used by the West to help topple the Red Army from Afghanistan, to help sort of defeat the Red Army in Afghanistan. And that's all part of the policy, I think.
Now, you've mentioned that you think that this is all part of a bigger picture about the recolonization of Africa. How far do you think the British involvement will go in terms of Mali, as we're seeing so far?
Well, I fear we're going to be dragged more and more into it, because last week David Cameron was telling us that we just cannot allow Islamists to take power in Mali. And he can't sort of back down a few days later and say, well, it doesn't really matter if Islamists take power in Mali. So he sort of talked himself into a corner on this one by bigging up the situation there. So I very much fear, I mean, the neocons haven't got their war against Syria, their direct intervention against Syria. So now it seems as if we all sort of got to sort of support this intervention against Mali.
And it's interesting, they're kind of slowly moving from North Africa to West Africa, I think it's fair to say. Just briefly, Africa, of course, has untapped natural resources. There's no secret there. Which countries appear most interested, do you think, in securing those possible resources, expanding their interests? And do you think we could see any possible conflict of interest between Western countries?
Very possibly, because I think obviously France, from Monsieur Hollande's point of view, the economy is a very bad state in France, and I think he's hoping that a successful intervention in Mali will boost his popularity ratings back home. It's always been well documented, the uranium issue and how France needs uranium there, and Malawi is a big producer of uranium, so there are resources there. So I think France is very clear economic reasons, and I think economic reasons are behind every single Western intervention over the last 30 years. If we look back at Yugoslavia, the attack on Yugoslavia, the attacks on Syria, the Libyan war, all these were dressed up as humanitarian interventions, but they're not. They're economic interventions, and the West wants resources. The West wants to get control of resources in this region, and I think NATO is going to relocate to North Africa. I think that's clearly what this is all about. The al-Qaeda threat is being bigged up in order that when NATO leaves Afghanistan, it will relocate to North Africa.
According to the Associated Press, this year the U.S. military will be deploying an Army brigade, codenamed the Dagger Brigade, to Africa to operate in small teams in 35 countries. The brigade will be under the control of General Carter Ham, head of the U.S. African Command. The official pretext for this move is to, quote, train countries to battle extremists and to give U.S. a ready and trained force to dispatch in Africa if crises requiring the U.S. military emerge. According to General Ham, mobilizing these forces for active combat would only require an order from Defense Secretary Leon Panetta. This announcement came as France began bombing missions in Mali earlier this year, followed by the deployment of ground troops, again under the pretext of fighting Islamic terrorism. It's important to note here that the government that France is backing was just recently established by the military in Mali, after a military coup which toppled the democratically elected government. The army, which has been accused of engaging in torture and sexual abuse of detainees, still retains real power. According to U.S. Defense Secretary Leon Panetta, the U.S. has been providing intelligence gathering assistance to the French in Mali. UK Special Forces are also involved in the operation. The grand irony here is that on one hand, NATO forces are taking military action against Islamic rebels. On the other hand, they are funding them and arming them in neighboring countries. In Syria, for example, France has openly supported the Syrian rebels in their attempts to destabilize the Syrian government, and has even offered to send the rebels anti-aircraft and heavy artillery. This in spite of German intelligence reports which have revealed that foreign al-Qaeda extremists have been behind a number of recent atrocities in Syria. These aren't just similar insurgents that are being funded in one country and battled in another. In many cases, they are the very same fighters. Russia's foreign minister Sergei Lavrov was recently quoted as saying, "In Mali, France is fighting against those it armed in Libya against Gaddafi's regime, in violation of the UN Security Council arms embargo." To complicate matters, on January 30th, Israel bombed targets in Syria, under the pretext that Syria was sending weapons to its ally Hezbollah in neighboring Lebanon. In spite of this act of overt war, the Syrian government has not retaliated. They understand that any retaliation would be used by NATO to provide the justification for a full-scale invasion. Through all of this, Russia has continued providing weapons to the Syrian government and has made moves to counter the NATO missile defense shield outpost that was recently established in East Anatolia, Turkey, by building an array of anti-aircraft missiles pointed at Turkey. All of this would seem contradictory and absurd if we take NATO's official explanation at face value, but it makes perfect sense if you understand what's really at stake here. NATO is both funding and attacking Islamic extremists because the instability which results provides the pretext for a military presence. NATO's growing military presence in Africa and in the Middle East only makes sense when viewed as strategic positioning in the build-up to a much larger global conflict. In World War II, Africa, the Middle East, and the Caucasus region were key pivot points which both sides fought to control. Rich in oil, gold, and other key industrial resources, military domination in these areas was a determining factor in the outcome of the conflict. Hitler's invasion of Russia, for example, was driven by his desire to control the vast oil fields of the Caucasus region, the area between the Caspian and Black Seas, which includes Iran and Azerbaijan. Not surprisingly, this region was also highlighted in Zbigniew Brzezinski's book The Grand Chessboard, which outlined the key regions which must be controlled in order to ensure continued U.S. dominance. Israel and NATO's current attacks in Syria, combined with U.S. sanctions on Iran which are openly geared towards destroying the Iranian economy, are part of a long-term policy of provocation. But what's really at stake in this provocation? Perhaps we should consider this statement by Major General Zhang Zhaozhong, who declared in late 2011 that, quote, "China will not hesitate to protect Iran even with the Third World War." Russia has issued numerous warnings of a similar nature, though the wording is slightly less direct.
We have a president that's signing executive orders like the King of England signs edicts during the revolution. And you don't like Fat Boy. And you want to see the war that I'm talking about, and that's the top trend for this one coming up. French hostage and 2 soldiers die in Somali rescue effort. Oh my God, a Somali rescue effort. Who could these guys be? Oh, I'll tell you who they were. A French intelligence officer was assassinated by his Islamic captors. Assassinated by his Islamic captors. What the hell is this guy doing there? Oh, don't raise your voice. They could do anything that they want. They're the French. They're the Americans. Oh, the Americans helped on this. Oh, yeah, the soldiers got killed. The guy that they were trying to rescue got killed, and they killed a lot of other people in the meantime. You have no business being there. You have no business being in Somalia. Hey, but Somalia is not enough? How about French airstrikes in Mali? Da-da-da-da! Oh, Mali, yeah, you know that place that the French, they love the word. They call it a colony. Oh, a colony. Oh, nice little colony. Yeah, colony. Yeah, they had it as a colony from 1892 to 1960. And now the place is up for grabs because of the breakup of Libya. That's right. They got all the arms over there, and now they're trying to overthrow the government. Yeah, that great humanitarian mission. And what is France doing? Airstrikes. They're killing innocent people. They want their colony back. They're doing deals all over the place over there. This is all about business. And talking about business, China, hey, they're the ones that do the best business in the world. Business is their game. Of a scale of 0 to 500, Beijing's air quality tops crazy bad at 755. They're killing everybody over there. Hey, it creates jobs. So what? That you have zillions of automobiles, you have burning coal, you got factories ringing the joint, and it's not only in Beijing. There's air pollution everywhere. That's all right. The poisons go into your lungs, the mercury, then it goes into your blood system, and then it kills you, and it makes room for more people to create new jobs. The weather's patterns are changing. You can't throw shit up in the air like this and not expect it to do anything. And I don't want to hear those emails either that you got the formula down and it's because of this star in that galaxy. Forecasters grist for grains. Corn wheat futures jump as USDA projects supplies will dwindle by summer. All right? I'm talking about China. Today's Wall Street Journal. Neighbors grow more weary of China. That's right. War. War is on the horizon. Russian lawmakers undertake quest to scrub civic life of foreign influence. Mr. Putin has made patriotism a central theme in his third presidential term. And the U.S. Foreign Deputy said strengthening Russia's sovereignty is now the Duma's, quote, most important direction. Then you pick up another article, Russia upgrading, strengthening military. Okay? And they're afraid of China too, and the United States. These wars are expanding. The United States is also involved in that Mali war. We're going to war. They know that this system is collapsing. And they're going to be taking more and more of our rights away from us. But you don't care. You people that have the nerve. Getting tight because I call some prostitute fat boy. A pig of a prostitute. Let's get this straight. Gun control's not going to solve the problem. Here, yesterday's New York Times. 50-year term for burning woman to death in elevator. Hey, they should have taken matches away from the guy. I say ban matches. It's not because he's a crazy son of a bitch. It's because of the damn matches. Ban matches. Oh, I know what we'll do. Instead of having a book of matches, we'll only have one match in a book. That's right. And no boxes of matches. That's right. Ask Fat Boy. That's not enough. After deadly fire, a man is charged with murder. The police charged a 45-year-old man with murder, arson, and attempted assault on Friday after a fire in Manhattan that left one person dead and several others injured. This man, the man, Wee Chu Wu, started the fire inside a 5-story apartment building after getting into a fight with the mother of his child, who lives in the second floor of the building. It's matches, damn it! Ban the damn matches! People don't need boxes of matches. It will be better if they only have one match so they cannot burn people in elevators or set houses on fire. I'm talking about war. Rising nationalist star sheds light on Israel's long-term drift to the right. Financial Times, drift to the right ain't so great. Oh, Netanyahu came out yesterday and said they're going to build those settlements and nobody cares. Nobody cares. The world is heading to war. And unless people push for peace, that's where we're going.
In a Turkish military base on a hill above the city of Kahramanmaraş, the German army is setting up its Patriot missile system. One by one, the rocket launchers are being directed to their designated locations. Situated 100 kilometers to the north of Turkey's southern border, their mission is to intercept and destroy ballistic missiles that may threaten the Turkish people in the area.
When you think about the NDAA, you probably think about indefinite detention of civilians without trial in military prisons, essentially the elimination of your rights as a human being. But hey, who needs rights anyway? Believe it or not, though, that's not the most scary thing in this document. Section 1063 of the National Defense Authorization Act of 2013 is titled, Report on the Capability of Conventional and Nuclear Forces Against Certain Tunnel Sites. This section directs the commander of the U.S. Strategic Command to prepare a report assessing the capability of the U.S. military to destroy a network of tunnels in China and the, quote, known hardened and deeply buried sites of foreign nations using conventional or nuclear forces. And what's important to realize here is that releasing such a statement publicly in a document that can easily be downloaded by China and other governments, this has to be interpreted as a provocation. But why would anyone want to make a nuclear-armed country nervous like this, unless they're actually trying to set off a war?